Everyone plays games differently, but it's a fact that most people play as a morally good character when given the option. In RPGs like The Elder Scrolls, Dragon Age, The Witcher and so on, where the player is presented with choices, they usually pick the quote-unquote best option, which basically means that the option doesn't make characters in the game mad at you, because at the end of the day, building relationships is often an important part of RPGs, and you don't want to ruin them, right? Well, in our game Mistwinter Bay, you kind of do, all the time. And that's the way we have intentionally designed it. Why, you might ask? Well, because the game is designed in a realistic-ish way, in terms of how a population would look at a medieval ruler. Because all people in a town would definitely not approve of the choices a ruler makes, and neither would rulers in different countries. So characters can like or dislike you in Mistwinter Bay, but why does it matter if they dislike you? In games like Telltale's The Walking Dead, making people angry hardly matters because they'll die in one way or another eventually. In fact, in many RPGs, it's kind of inconsequential if a character dislikes you because they'll stick with you anyway, up until a certain point of the story at least. It does, however, matter in Mistwinter Bay, since every character has something we've called a negative reputation event. The name means that when the character has reached the lowest reputation possible, which is -100, they will confront you in some way. Although right now we have plans to not cap all of these events at -100, we might have -75 for some characters and so on. What makes this truly unique compared to other games is that every character reacts differently in these events. Depending on their personality, background and profession, they might start a revolution, try to unalive you, or just ask for some money. They might end with the character being happier with you, or truly detest you, or they will move out, or die. Or you die. For Empress Ophelia and the 6 foreign leaders, the consequences may be even more dire. How it can be more dire than death, I don't know though. Eternal torment or something? A single character's -100 event may look very different depending on what you've done in the game so far too. As an example, the Avalorist Priestess Dawn has 2 branching stories. One if you are supported by the Avalorist Church, and one if you aren't. The Innkeeper, Cecil, has branching stories as well, depending on if you have completed his personal quest or not. In fact, out of the 8 characters we've written these events for, half of them have these sort of completely different events. The other characters are considered to remain kind of the same regardless of what you've done so far, so they only have one main story. Let's take a closer look at what one of these events can look like. Also, a bit of a spoiler alert for this, I guess, although the full game won't be out for a long time, so you'll probably forget this by the time you play it anyway. Here we have the lumberjack, Hector Grey. He's a just and honest hard-working man from the lower class. He can't read and doesn't feel comfortable talking too much, especially to well-educated people. So, one of his branching stories starts with him bringing one of 7 specific characters with him to complain to you. He brings one of these specific characters since they can be considered righteous and willing to stand up for someone like Hector. And they're better educated than him too, which fits the court setting. So Hector and the other character, which in this case is Celia, asks you for money. You can try to reconcile by paying the requested sum, or you can flat out refuse. Or you can try a middle ground by apologizing for your behavior towards Hector and still refuse to pay. These options all lead to different endings, which will make Hector and the other characters like or dislike you more. By bringing in another character like this, the stakes are somewhat higher, because though you might have accidentally made Hector get negative reputation, chances are you did so on purpose. So why would you care about making him happy? The opinions of other characters, like Celia, is an example of why it might be a good idea to reconcile. Or simply the fact that, in some instances, the character might move out, which in turn means that you can't use them for the rest of the game and their building produces less resources. In other words, there are a lot of different mechanics playing into these choices. Now onto Hector's second branching story. This one happens if you don't have any of the specific characters in town. It starts with you getting a warning about Hector leading a mob of angry lumberjacks. Then you get the option to try and negotiate with Hector or try to keep the mob out. Spoiler alert, this option doesn't lead to more choices, so you can probably imagine what happens. If you choose to negotiate with Hector, you get similar choices to the first branching story with Celia, although this time things play out quite differently depending on what you choose. And the option to blame everything on Hector only loops back to the other two options again. If you decide to pay, you do that, but if you can't afford what you promised, you might end up in a tough spot. If you refuse, on the other hand, it might be easy to imagine that Hector will flip out and kill you or something. Other characters like Celia might do that. Hector, on the other hand, is a very chill dude who prefers to solve things peacefully if possible. So he'll be nice to you, only threaten you a little bit, and enter an agreement with you. You agree to let someone in town be your champion against Hector in a wrestling match. If there is no one but Hector in town, though, you lose automatically. The champion you picked can, of course, win or lose. That depends on that character's stats, in this case strength. In order to be guaranteed to beat Hector, the character needs at least 50 strength. If the character has less than 40 strength, they can't win. If it's between 40 and 50, it's a 20% chance to win. Yeah, it might sound a bit difficult, but we're talking about a burly lumberjack pushed to his limits. He isn't gonna go easy on them. In general, in these negative 100 events, if you get to pit one character against the one that's angry with you, your champion generally needs higher stats in certain areas than the angry one. In this example, we picked the Valorous Priestess Dawn as our champion and, well, she didn't stand a chance. Hector got what he demanded, but he detests you, since you didn't agree to pay willingly. And that's just one of the endings of these branching stories. This means that even if you make Hector hate you on several different playthroughs, chances are you won't get the same end results in this event. That's the way we designed it, so that there's a high level of replayability even in such a narrative-focused game. To sum things up, it's likely that some characters will start disliking you eventually in Mistwinter Bay, based on your choices. When someone has had enough of you, you can expect a unique story from them based on their personality. If you found this video interesting, consider checking out more of our devlogs. We've talked about all sorts of aspects of developing this game, and we'll talk about even more things in the future. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.